The Galactic Council had gathered for 2,000 years to remember the day Earth vanished. They called it the Great Silence. On that terrible morning, the small blue planet simply blinked out of existence. No explosion. No warning. One moment it was there, spinning in its quiet corner of the Milky Way. The next moment, nothing remained but empty space and the confused signals of satellites that suddenly had no home to orbit. The aliens of the galaxy had watched humanity with careful eyes for centuries before that day. Humans were young. They were loud. They were messy and violent and strangely beautiful in their chaos. The Empire considered them pests. The collective saw them as future slaves. The peaceful simply observed and wondered what these strange creatures might become if given enough time. But time ran out for Earth, or so everyone believed. Commander of the stood on the observation deck of his warship, staring at the empty coordinates where Earth once lived. He had made this journey every 100 years as his father did, and his father before him. It was tradition now, a reminder that even the most troublesome species could simply disappear. They had been the most powerful empire in the galaxy for 8,000 years. They had crushed rebellions on 1,000 worlds. They had burned cities and silenced entire civilizations. But they had never made a planet vanish completely. Whatever happened to Earth remained the galaxy's greatest mystery. His communication officer suddenly gasped. The sound was so strange that turned immediately. In 800 years of service, he had never heard that officer make such a noise. "Commander," the officer whispered, his scales turning pale blue with fear. "Something is appearing at the old Earth coordinates." Rushed to the viewing screen. At first, he saw only static and sensor confusion. Then the readings began to stabilize. Mass detection confirmed something massive was forming in the void. Energy signatures unlike anything in databases pulsed through the region. Space itself seemed to fold and twist like fabric being pulled through a ring. And then, like a dreamer waking from a long sleep, Earth returned. But it was not the same Earth that had vanished. The planet that emerged from that dimensional fold was covered in lights, not the scattered glow of primitive cities, but a unified network of brilliance that wrapped around the entire globe. Great structures rose from the surface, reaching into the atmosphere like silver fingers touching the stars. Ships surrounded the planet in layers, thousands upon thousands of vessels ranging from small fighters to massive carriers that dwarfed battleships. Felt his heart stop, both of them. The communication channel crackled with a transmission. It was broadcast on all frequencies, in every language the galaxy had ever known, including many that had been dead for. "This is Admiral Sarah of the Terran Ascendancy. We apologize for our long absence. We had some internal matters to resolve. We are now ready to rejoin galactic civilization. We come in peace, but we are prepared for the alternative." The message repeated across every corner of the Milky Way. On the throne world of the Empire, the Supreme Council convened in emergency session. In the crystalline halls of the collective, the hive minds buzzed with confusion and terror. Among the gentle, elders wept with joy, for they had always believed humans would return. Within hours, the galaxy learned what had happened to Earth. 2,000 years ago, human scientists had discovered something beneath the surface of their moon. It was a device, ancient beyond measure, left behind by a species that had existed before the current galaxy was born. The device was a gateway, a door to somewhere else, somewhere outside normal space and time. When humanity activated the device, they did not understand what would happen. Earth and its moon were pulled through the gateway into a pocket dimension, a place where time moved differently, a place of endless resources and strange energies. In the pocket dimension, 2,000 years for the galaxy meant only 500 years for humanity. 500 years of isolation. 500 years of growth without the threats of hostile alien empires. 500 years of unity, because there was no one else to fight except themselves, and they quickly learned that survival required cooperation. Humanity changed during those centuries. They unlocked the secrets of the ancient device and found others like it. They learned to manipulate space and time in ways that should have been impossible. They built ships that could cross galaxies in moments. They developed weapons that could crack planets or heal dying stars. They evolved, not just technologically, but as a species. Genetic modification removed their worst impulses while enhancing their greatest strengths. They became faster, smarter, and lived for centuries instead of decades. But they never forgot who they were. They never forgot the galaxy they had left behind. The Supreme Council demanded answers. They sent their largest fleet to the returned Earth, 40,000 warships carrying enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Commander led the armada, his confidence rebuilding as he counted his ships. Humanity might have advanced, but they were still human. They could still be conquered. The Terran Ascendancy sent a single ship to meet them. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. Admiral stood on its bridge, watching the approaching armada with calm eyes. She was 270 years old, though she looked no older than 40. She had been a child when Earth vanished, growing up in the pocket dimension, trained for this moment her entire life. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "They are powering weapons. They intend to attack." Nodded, expected, transmit warning 1. The warning went out. They ignored it as she knew they would. Their arrogance was legendary. Their fleet opened fire, unleashing enough energy to turn a moon into dust. The single Terran ship did not move. A shimmer appeared around it, a field of twisted space that swallowed every beam and missile. Nothing touched the hull, not a single scratch. Warning 2, ordered. Again they attacked. Again their weapons did nothing. Commander felt something he had not experienced in 8 centuries. Fear. Real fear. His weapons were useless. His fleet might as well have been throwing stones at a star. Warning 3 said quietly, "Last one." Her tactical officer hesitated. "Admiral, are you sure? We came in peace." "We did. They chose war. Now we show them why that was a mistake." The small Terran ship pulsed once with strange light. Across the armada, every weapon system went dark. Every engine stopped. Every shield failed. 40,000 warships drifted helplessly, completely disabled without a single loss of life. Opened a channel to the flagship. "Commander, your fleet will be returned to you after we have concluded negotiations with your Supreme Council. Your crews are unharmed and will remain so. We do not desire conquest. We do not seek revenge for the plans your empire made against our world before our disappearance. Yes, we know about those plans. We know everything." She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity spent 2,000 years alone in the dark. We had time to think about what kind of species we wanted to be when we returned. We chose to be protectors, not conquerors. We will defend the weak against the strong. We will oppose tyranny wherever we find it. And we will never, ever be threatened again. This is not a warning, Commander. This is a promise. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The Empire, undefeated for 8, had been humiliated by a single ship. The collective immediately sued for peace, releasing all enslaved species from their hive worlds. Dozens of smaller empires that had lived under the boot of galactic powers suddenly found themselves free. The delegation arrived at Earth within days, bringing gifts and songs of welcome. They had always believed in humanity. Now their faith was rewarded. Admiral met them personally, and the images of humans and embracing were broadcast to every corner of civilization. But not everyone welcomed humanity's return. In the shadows of the galaxy, in places where light rarely reached, old powers stirred. The ones who had placed that ancient device on Earth's moon. The ones who had waited for humanity to find it, to use it, to become something more. They had been watching since before the Empire was born. They had seen species rise and fall across millions of years, and now their experiment had returned results beyond their expectations. The Watchers, as they called themselves, observed Earth with new interest. Humanity had done what no other species in galactic history had accomplished. They had transcended their limitations without losing their essential nature. They were still human, still emotional, still driven by love and hope and dreams. But now they had the power to enforce those dreams across the stars. This changed everything. The Galactic Council reformed with humanity at its center. Admiral became the first Terran representative, and her voice carried weight that no human had ever possessed. She spoke of justice and freedom and the right of all species to determine their own fate. She spoke of protecting the innocent and standing against cruelty. She spoke of a future where the strong helped the weak instead of crushing them. Some listened, some plotted in secret. The galaxy was too old, too set in its ways to change overnight. But humanity had time. They had learned patience during their long absence. They would wait and work and slowly transform civilization from within. On Earth, the celebrations continued for months. People who had never seen their ancestral home, born in the pocket dimension, walked on grass and swam in oceans and wept at the beauty of sunsets. Children played in parks that had been carefully preserved through 5 centuries of isolation. Monuments stood to the billions who had lived and died during humanity's exile, each name remembered, each story honored. Admiral stood alone on a hillside, looking up at the stars. She thought about her grandmother, who had been a young woman when Earth vanished. She thought about the stories she had been told, about the fear and chaos of those first days in the pocket dimension, when no one knew if they would survive. They had survived. More than that, they had thrived. Now came the harder task, building a better galaxy, proving that power did not have to mean cruelty, showing that strength could be used for protection instead of domination. It would take generations, maybe centuries, but humanity had time. And they would never be silent again.